What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Bettor's Almanac podcast. I am Matt Kowalas with my good friend and partner, Eric Pauly, and we are heading into the divisional round for the NFL playoffs. It is week 16 for the Bettor's Almanac podcast, 16 goddamn episodes already, powered by Sports Memo and brought to you by PointsBet Sportsbook. Greatly appreciate our sponsors. Eric, how's it going today, my man?
Going well, brother. For all those of you who don't know, if you didn't see on Twitter, I was away in Vail, Colorado this weekend, enjoying the slopes, enjoying some football as well. It was a great time. 3-3 weekends, but 3 units of profit, so not complaining. I got a little too cute. I thought that the Giants-Vikings game was going to be a 3-point game either way, so I took a prop. Giants winning margin 1-6 plus 350, and then I was winning by 7, so that didn't hit. But I should have just stuck with the money line and took the profits there. But hit on Jacksonville. You and I did very very easily, but was nice to see. I lost on Seattle. I ended up taking the points there, which was a bad play. But then my other teasers hit. So huge wild card weekend plus 3 units, sitting number 1 in sports member in units won this season, number 2 in winning percentage at like 63%, and number 3 in ROI at 29%. And honestly, I need to see who's ahead of me there because like they must have only had like 2 or 3 players all season long if they're breaking those numbers. But how'd your wild card weekend shake out?
No, that's a great point too, because you know how I am. I attack every slate pretty hard, and there are definitely some people on the roster who barely attack the slate and have like 20 plays throughout the season. Shit, I might have 20 plays in a week. That's kind of, I'm a little wild sometimes, but yeah, last week, honestly, the end of the season is not exactly going how I would like. I went 5-6 last week, not the worst thing in the world. Like I said, maybe sometimes I put out a little too many plays, but when it's the playoffs, sometimes, dude, you just want to bet some of these games and you want to try and look for angles to get out there for people to play. And definitely looking to close this season very, very strong. I think there's some very good angles in some of these playoff matchups coming up this week. You guys have heard me talk about some of the teams that I'm targeting. I have that future bet with the Cincinnati Bengals facing off against the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers taking that one outright. Last week, again, I did put down a $50 bet for Christian McCaffrey to win the Super Bowl MVP at plus 2,000. Again, kind of coincides with my San Francisco Super Bowl run or Super Bowl bet. And I think if McCaffrey gets to that Super Bowl, he does have a pretty good chance to do it because he's going to be going against probably one of 3 teams, which would be the Bengals, Bills, or Chiefs, and all struggle somewhat in stopping the run. A running back coming out of the backfield. I think it would be a very good opportunity there. And, of course, check out that bet on PointsBet Sportsbook because right now it's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet Sportsbook. New customers can sign up using the code Almanac to get 5 second chance bets of up to $500. That's 5 straight days of second chances where PointsBet will match your losing wager in free bets. So use promo code Almanac and enjoy more live betting markets than ever before. PointsBet, your move. And guys, we've been slacking a little bit on getting the PointsBet free bets out there. This week, we are doing a $200 free bet. We will be on it. I'll post from my account. Eric will post from his, from the Bettor's Almanac. We'll get this going, and we want to get someone to win this $200 free bet so you can use it for the playoff matchups, okay? And again, to do that, you have to place a $20 live bet on PointsBet Sportsbook for any NFL game this weekend, or a same-game parlay of $20 for any game this playoff weekend on top of that, okay? So let's get it going. Eric, take us away.
Yeah, so just like last week, we're going to just break down every single game on the slate. Obviously, we got 4 games left, 8 teams, only 7 games left in the NFL season. So obviously now it's appointment television every single game we're going to be watching. It's kicking off, going right by rotation number and time number. Jacksonville Jaguars headed to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. This spread opened at Kansas City minus 9.5, shot down pretty quickly to 8.5, and now I'm seeing 8.5s and 9s at some places. We have a 9 right now at PointsBet Sportsbook. Total open 52. It's ticked up actually slightly 52.5, 53 in some shops. So looking like there's going to be a ton of points here. These 2 teams, they faced off back in November. And the Chiefs won just by 10 points, which obviously isn't even like a small margin of victory. It's a big margin of victory. And the Chiefs didn't even really play all that well that game. The Jaguars had a bunch of turnovers in that matchup. Excuse me, the Chiefs had a bunch of turnovers in that matchup. The Jaguars also had an onside kick in that game to kind of steal another possession from them, and they still lost by 10. Now, obviously, the Jaguars, what they did against the Chargers last week, they, dead in the water, down 27 points. I almost turned off that game, but I keep watching. We cashed on both of our dogs last week, the Giants and the Jags. But, Matt, you can't spot the Kansas City Chiefs 27 points. Like Trevor Lawrence, I think those 4 interceptions in the first half, kind of fluky, right? Like he's proven he's a great quarterback. I'm obviously not going to say elite top 5 yet, but he has that potential 100%. Yeah. You can't spot the Chiefs that many points. They gained 486 yards the last time they played the Jaguars, dude. Like Mahomes, 331 passing yards, 4 TDs, but he had that pick and a fumble. Like, I don't see how Kansas City doesn't cover the spread personally.
Yeah, in this matchup, I'm definitely with you. After watching last week with Trevor Lawrence, it seems like it takes him like a quarter, 2 quarters to get going sometimes. And if you're facing the Kansas City Chiefs, that's going to be too long. That's the bottom line. And here's another thing. If you get behind against the Kansas City Chiefs, a valuable aspect to the Jacksonville Jaguars has been Travis Etienne and their rushing attack. If you get down like that, then the rushing attack goes completely out the window, and the Kansas City Chiefs can kind of have their way with you. On top of that, Arrowhead, a very, very tough place to play. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs have somewhat been keeping a leash on Isaiah Pacheco. And I think this could be a game, or the playoffs could be really where we see Pacheco get going. This is a good running back. He's a powerful running back. He's fast, good inside tackles. And we've seen that this is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that you can rush the football effectively on. So again, to your point, I think if Kansas City gets up, then they turn to their run game. And then on top of that, Patrick Mahomes, especially when he gets into the playoffs, he kind of gets that extra gear. You know what I'm saying? He likes to get outside the pocket. He's very good at extending plays, picking up first downs with his legs. And that's what the playoffs are all about. And that's where you take your game to the next level. In the regular season, you might not go out and try and get that first down with your legs. In the playoffs, you do. And for me, to your point again, I thought I saw some very impressive things from Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, anytime you come down from 27 points, and win that game, some things got to go right. And I think Jacksonville also might be riding too much of a high after that. That's a big comfort behind victory. That's very, very emotional. And now you're going on the road to face Kansas City, and you got to correct everything very fast. You know what I mean? And get back kind of honed in. You got to get focused. I think that's going to be tough. I think this is a very young Jacksonville team. On top of that, again, I like Trevor Lawrence, but some of those throws he was making was just because he was outside of his head. It was more so he was letting the moment get to him. You know what I'm saying? Like the one was a base cover 2 coverage, I believe, and the corner was just in like a blue zone and fucking just came up and picked the route like it was the easiest thing in the world. So if he does anything like that against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, it's basically game over, and I expect Kansas City to cover the spread. So for me, I'm 100% with you here. I would love to see this be a quarterback duel, somewhat of a shootout. I just don't think it will be. I think Kansas City has too much firepower. I think they have too much experience, keyword experience there. They've been in this moment. They've done this before. Trevor Lawrence and those Jags, very nice comeback, but too young of a team. They need to get a little more experience here, and I think they'll make too many mistakes against this Kansas City team.
And something we talked about last week, right? Like, just in our breakdown of the game, like, the Chargers aren't good, right? Like, they're obviously not that bad. They're not the Dolphins or even maybe the Giants or whoever, the Vikings, clearly. But, like, the Chargers over the regular season, the only playoff team that they beat, like we said, was the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. Yes, the Jaguars didn't really have a gauntlet of any sort. They're playing the Jets, the Titans a couple times, some other bad teams to get into the playoffs at the end of the season. But that was just 2 like evenly matched teams going at it, both evenly matched while being mediocre. Now you have the number 1 seed in the AFC, the best offense in football, and I will say arguably the best team. I personally don't think the Chiefs are the best team. Obviously, when you have Mahomes under center, he's the great equalizer, so anything is on the table. They'll always be in contention as long as they have a mediocre roster around him. They'll be making the postseason with Mahomes under center. But the one thing that stuck out to me is the Chiefs' defense this year, 31st in red zone defense. So if the only way the Jaguars win this football game is if they're able to create turnovers and convert in the red zone, because you're not stopping Mahomes. That pass defense is atrocious. Like they are not stopping Patrick Mahomes by any means. So they would have to kind of get lucky, steal some possessions there. But I don't see how the Chiefs do not win this football game by 8.5 points. I think that they're going to cover the spread. And it's actually a great segue into the next game on the slate, the Giants and the Eagles. The number one teaser in probably all season long, including the regular season, is going to be Chiefs -2.5, Eagles -1.5 as a 6 point to go 7 point.
Yeah.
-1.5, Eagles basically PK. Matt, obviously that seems too good to be true, right? And too easy. It could
There's
be.
no way that doesn't hit, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it looks great. I mean, to your point, with Jacksonville, you know what I mean? Like you said, they have not played anyone all that tough. They played Kansas City earlier in the year, lost that game 27-17. One thing I wanted to touch on too is I think Travis Kelce has a very good game in this matchup. Travis Kelce, last time they faced off, had 6 receptions for 81 yards and a touchdown. And you guys know how I like to do it. If you've had a couple down games in a row, I'm going to be that guy to back you on your third or fourth. And Travis Kelce has not hit 50 yards in 2 straight games. So I think he's going to be ramping it up. He's definitely going to want to get it going with Patrick Mahomes here. Like you said, Jacksonville pass defense, not very good. So I think he's in a great spot as well. And again, teasing that down to a -2.5, it's very, very tough not to see the Kansas City Chiefs not at least winning this by a field goal. And with the Giants, I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, so I'm going to just quick disclaimer here. My $2 Tuesday play is in the Giants-Eagles game. Obviously, you guys know I'm always willing to tell you about any and every play I have, but $2 Tuesday is different because it is literally $2. You go over to sportsnumber.com, search me up in the experts, Eric Pauly. $2, you get this play. Man, I don't really ask for much, so I don't think I'm asking too much for a little $2 because I've given you everything all season long. But if any team blows the 1.5, or like that teaser, I guess it would be the Eagles, only because Lane Johnson, right? Like we talked about this last week.
Yes.
There are always players mostly on the offensive line or in the depths of like the secondary or the defensive line that you don't realize how important they are to a team. They're not going to affect the spread, but they should, right? I'm not saying they should as much of a quarterback, but by a point, a half point. Lane Johnson is one of those players. He's been a stalwart on the right tackle for the Eagles, and that injury is really going to be huge for them. The Giants, I mean, we loved watching that last week. That was so much fun watching them beat up on the Vikings. Like we called that on the podcast. And that was just, what Daniel Jones did. You got to give credit where credit's due, right? Like I'm not backing on the Daniel Jones train or anything like that just because he had 15 freaking touchdown passes this year. It's like, bro, 15, like that is not a lot. But you got to respect his gall and his ability to run the football. But I'm not going to go too much more into this game just because, again, to have that $2 Tuesday. So before I get passed back to you, though, I want to say the point you made about quarterbacks running for first downs and running for touchdowns. I think in all 4 games this weekend, there is value on taking all the quarterbacks as anytime touchdown scorers.
I like that. I think that's a great look because I mean you got Daniel Jones, you got Jalen Hurts, you got Patty Mahomes, you got Trevor Lawrence,
Purdy,
Josh Allen,
Burrow. Was not afraid to take a hit and dive and put his body on the line.
No, and 2 in those playoffs when you if you have those plays where you get down at the 1 yard line, like that QB sneak now with the running back coming up behind you, or you have the tight ends behind or coming in motion, like they just push them into the end zone nowadays. So I do think it's that much more probable for a quarterback to get in the end zone, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know exactly what the odds were for last week, but obviously like the Daniel Jones touchdown runs and whatnot, like there's definitely just value there. I mean, the only person I would say, actually, I can't even say any of it. Like the Chiefs, I would think that, Mahomes is just going to throw the ball over this Jacksonville team, which they obviously he can and will. But at the same time, if they're just playing coverage and they're in man and their defensive backs are running with their backs to Mahomes, he can easily run it for 15, 20 yards, if not just a 5 to 2, 3, 4, 5 yard run. So I think that's a great angle. But going back to specifically Giants, Eagles, anything that you're kind of circling here? Because for me, looking at this, of course, when they played earlier in the season, the Eagles beat the absolute shit out of the Giants, and I predicted that. I was on the Eagles there. It was just one of those situations where the Giants team speed just did not even come close to matching. But then week 18, the Giants are playing their backups against the Eagles team that needed to win. Only lost by 6 points.
Yeah.
I think the spread is correct here, but I'm just curious your thoughts. Like, are you seeing a more like heroic Giants effort again? Or do you think the Birds reassert themselves as this great team in the NFC that is going to be competing for a championship, NFC championship next week?
So I'm actually expecting more of a heroic effort from the Giants, if I'm being honest. This Philadelphia Eagles team, like you said, Lane Johnson going down, that's a huge piece. I think if in fact Jalen Hurts would not have gotten hurt and would have played the entire season with the Philadelphia Eagles, I'd probably be on the Eagles here. But I think there's some chemistry and synergy that kind of needs to come back together for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Because again, when Hurts went down, came back in, faced the Giants. He played in that Giants game, correct? Am I remembering correct?
In the first matchup, yeah, both matchups, yes, he played in both games.
That's what I thought. So he played in both matchups. And then in the second matchup, it, like you said, it was a 6-point game. It was a lot closer than a lot of people expected. And I think, Sirianni played him there to try and get that synergy back, to try and get that chemistry back. So you play that one game, you go out, you get the win, but it wasn't as fluid as they would have liked. It wasn't as clean as they would have liked, or what we've expected from the Philadelphia Eagles early in the season. And the books are actually representing that. The San Francisco 49ers are ahead of the Eagles now to win the NFC. Yep. So again, I think going into this divisional round, you have that bye week. And I personally don't necessarily think that bye week is an amazing thing. I think you want to play someone. I think you want to get out on the field, hit some people, get some on-field action, get some on-field timing between Hurts and, say, A.J. Brown, or Hurts and Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, whoever it may be. So for me, I think this is that game now. They're playing the Giants once again. They're incredibly familiar with each other. Beating a team 3 times is very, very difficult. And beating a team by, over 7.5 points in the third time is going to be very, very difficult, especially coming off a game where Daniel Jones looked incredible. And you need a quarterback like Daniel Jones to go against the Philadelphia Eagles, who have 3 pass rushers with over 10 sacks, and I believe 2 or 3 with 5 or more on top of that. So Daniel Jones is obviously going to have to play well. He's going to have to use his legs once again. And I think they're going to have to use Saquon Barkley actually coming out of the backfield in quick swing passes, getting him out in space, things of that nature. But for me, again, I don't expect like the Giants to win this game or anything like that, but I personally think they can keep it within 7, because I don't think this Eagles team is clicking like they were earlier in the season.
I completely agree with you. Just think about, even like, this is before they changed the entire format, but like when the Chiefs had the bye and they played against the Texans at home with Deshaun Watson, and they had a couple of muff punts or turnovers, and the Texans were up like 24-0, and then the Chiefs had to slowly come back and get back reacclimated with that game. Like, they're definitely, the bye, I'm not going to say is overrated by any means, because rest certainly has its benefits in pro football. But for a team like the Eagles, who had to play the last 2 weeks before the last week without Jalen Hurts, to then only play Jalen Hurts in more or less a scrimmage and then have another rest week, I could see the pros to that, of being like, okay, he had some repetitions, now he has a break, now he should be back more fresh. But I also see the cons of, like, it's not like you guys came out against the Giants' third stringers and put on a show and reassured yourself and gained that confidence. It kind of went the other way, where it was like, oh shit, we barely won that football game. Like, what's up? Nick Sirianni, I think, is a great coach. I think their roster is loaded. So, like, it's hard to not be that great, because they do have talented players at every single level on all 3 sides, special teams, defense, and offense. But we'll see. We'll see how that game breaks down. Should be exciting. And again, with only 7 football games left for the season, I'm watching every single second of every single game that's coming up left. But let's move on to 2 games that marquee matchups. I mean, this game, everybody's circled on their calendar. Cincinnati Bengals headed to Buffalo. And I got to say, this line movement I was not expecting whatsoever. Buffalo opened as 4-point favorites. Now it is 5.5-point dogs. Excuse me. Now Bengals are 5.5-point dogs. Actually seeing 1.6 on the board somewhere that's sharp in Vegas, so that's a little bit suspect to me. I already took the Bengals plus the 5.5, 2% up on Sports Memo. Again, like we talked about, Matt, last week, Jaguars, Chargers. The market supported the Chargers, but we were saying like, fuck the market for this one. Like, I like the Jaguars, even though I respect the hell of the market. You can chalk it up luck to whatever you want that win. This is another situation where there's market. I respect the shit out of you. I know there's people with a lot more information, more money that are able to, get these game simulations down to a T. But I'm taking the Bengals here, bro. I don't get this whatsoever. What are you thinking here?
No, I don't understand this at all. Like, if I'm being completely honest, like, what the fuck is drawing you to the Bills right now? Yeah. Like, we just saw them go out and hang very, very close with a Dolphins team at home. The Dolphins damn near fucking beat them. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't play good. How many drops did someone like Jalen Waddle have? Jalen Waddle is one of the premier receivers in this league, had a ton of drops. And what's Skylar Thompson? Is that the guy's name? Yeah, Skylar Thompson. So he's the one leading the Miami Dolphins. And I'm sorry, I just cannot get behind Josh Allen when it comes down to these key moments. He continues to make mistakes, and he's somewhat bailed out because of the teams that he's playing. If you do that against a Cincinnati Bengals team with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, and one thing I want to say is this is one of those games where I expect Jamar Chase to have a day. Like, I would not be surprised whatsoever. 100 yards, 8 receptions, 100 yards, tutty, something along those lines, because Jamar Chase comes to play in the playoffs. And I think this is one of those spots. And I'm going to be honest, I actually think this is a better matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals than that of even the Baltimore Ravens. So obviously the Bills are better on offense than the Baltimore Ravens. But defensively, I think the Bengals can do more in terms of incorporating Joe Mixon, being able to run the football a little bit, incorporating that play action attack, because the Cincinnati Bengals are by far at their best when the play action attack is rolling. I mean, we've seen guys like La'el Collins go down. We see how often Joe Burrow gets sacked, and that's why you have to run that football and you have to incorporate that play action attack, because they have premier receivers and premier weapons who can get down the field, and Joe Burrow is one of those guys who can obviously find him, or find them, I should say. And again, this Bills team is just not a team I'm buying into. I don't understand how this is still the second, I believe they're the second-ranked team in terms of Super Bowl favorite. And I personally just still do not get it. This team has not shown me anything to get behind them at this point in time. To me, this is the same team that lost to, Cincinnati, and then continue to lose. So again, Josh Allen and this Bills team, me and you have talked about this all year. Josh Allen and this Bills team is in a prove it mode for me. They have to go out and prove it before I will back them. Okay, so for me, I'm still on the Bengals. I'm still on the Bengals to win the AFC. I'm on the Bengals to win to upset the Bills outright here, and I'm on the Bengals with 5.5.
Yeah, dude, I agree. Like, Josh Allen against the Miami Dolphins defense, which is abysmal last week. He had 3 fumbles, only 1 lost, and 2 picks against that. Like, you can't be giving the teams like the Cincinnati Bengals, the Kansas City Chiefs, those possessions. Like, if you look at kind of like the yards, like Buffalo, again, like they played against Miami earlier this season, like they outgained the shit out of them, but they still like barely pulled off a win in 2 of the games. They even lost one of them. I know that was back in week 2. I'm not putting too much stock in a week 2 game at this point, but they're sloppy. And what really concerns me, like you were saying, Matt, is this Buffalo Bills defense, right? So the one thing that needs to be considered is the offensive line of Cincinnati. Like, that is huge. The fact that they have gone 16 weeks with the same exact offensive line, and that continuity, which is so important, and the pass protection has been so much better. Run game's still a little shitty, but pass protection is so much better. To now have 3 new starters, like, yes, that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. However, I personally just believe, because of the fact that they all played last week and then now they're preparing for Buffalo, like if they were coming in like completely off the street, like never played together, this was the first game all 3 of them were going to play together with the extra 2 linemen that were there, I'd be more concerned. But since they got that week under the belt, I'm less concerned. It's also not like the Buffalo Bills have an amazing pass rush. Like, Von Miller's out, he's gone. The Bills have some really good rotational pieces, so they're always going to have fresh legs coming at Burrow, which I think is a huge thing. You can't overstate that. Like Boogie Basham, like Ed Oliver, like they have guys there that are talented. Like Tim Settle, like I'm obviously missing another one that I'm slipping my brain, but I don't see it, dude. The defense has been really bad. Like you let up 31 points to Skylar Thompson. and like you could chalk that up to turnovers from Josh Allen, but like, what makes you really believe that he's not going to have a couple turnovers against the Bengals? Like, he's literally been the most turnover prone player in football this year.
Injury.
Like, I don't think it gets that much more complicated, right? I don't think that there's so much more to kind of think about. The Bills in that game that was voided, like the Bengals were controlling that football game.
They were going to win that game. I really think so.
I just think that, like, from a pure market perspective, right? Say home field advantage now in the NFL is between 1.5 to 2.5 points, right? Like, not very many is 3. 3 is not the home field anymore in football. Buffalo definitely has, say, 2 points of home field advantage. However, it's not like it's going to be snowing or that shitty in Buffalo, and the Bengals are used to the cold. They're playing freaking Cincinnati. So I don't see there being now 3 full points of home field advantage for Buffalo, because that line was Buffalo minus 2.5 in Cincinnati. Now 5.5, even 6. There's just no way it's 3 to 3.5 points of home field advantage, in my opinion.
No, and I'm 100% with you. As you know, like, I think a lot of people are still buying into this like preseason hype with the Buffalo Bills, because since that Thanksgiving game against the Detroit Lions, where the Detroit Lions could have beaten the Buffalo Bills for sure, I don't think this Buffalo team has looked like a championship team since earlier before that game. You know what I mean?
Also, real quick, who have they played? They beat the Browns. Okay, they beat the Lions. Tough game. Lions end up being good. They beat a shitty Patriot team. They beat a shitty Jets team. They beat a shitty Dolphins team. They beat a shitty Bears team. They got voided against the Bengals. They beat a shitty Patriots team. They beat a shitty Dolphins team.
Like, exactly. And you look at their depth chart too. I mean, Jordan Phillips is questionable. Daquan Jones is questionable. Jordan Poyer is questionable. Dane Jackson is questionable. Von Miller, like we said, he's out. If Von Miller was playing in this game, I'd probably back the Bills. I'm not even kidding.
I agree.
He's that influential. They don't have that pure pass rusher coming off that edge now, that pure specialist who's fast, who's quick getting around that corner. So Von Miller being out, AJ Espinosa, Epinesa, my goodness. And then Micah Hyde is out. Damar Hamlin is out. This is a team that's very, very banged up on the defensive side of the ball. And these are key positions. These are pass rushers. These are secondary players who would typically be matching up against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Someone I expect to actually have a good game here is Hayden Hurst as well. Yeah. Hayden Hurst, very low key. Wouldn't be surprised if he somehow got in the end zone. I don't know, man. I don't agree with this line. I don't agree with the line movement as well. So for me, I'd be the Bengals. I have the Bengals winning this outright, as you know.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you here. I might sprinkle money line 5.5 already locked in for Sports Memo. I'm telling you guys all right now. So I'm on the Cincinnati Bengals here. Just to play a little devil's advocate for us, like, while we've made it very clear that we need to see more from Josh Allen to really be like, wait a second, he's like, because Mahomes is here, like Allen is like substantially like lower, right? Like he's not fully in that conversation. Yes, the fact that Allen can run the football and can pick up those third downs himself is a crucial piece, and that's something to keep in consideration, because I can't come out here and say the Bengals are going to steamroll them. Like, no, we're in for a hell of a fucking football game. Like, I'm excited. I can't wait for this game. 3:00 Sunday. Like, let's get it. But I agree with you completely that in terms of the way these teams are playing, because the Bills have won 8 straight. The Bengals have won 9 straight. Like, these are two like guys going at it. Like, this is going to be like, this is the heavyweights. Like,
and the Bengals, to your point, the Bengals competition has been far tougher than that of the Bills as well. I understand it's the Baltimore Ravens and stuff like that, but that Baltimore Ravens is still a premier defense throughout the entire NFL. It's you definitely got to be sharp against them. It's tough to go down the field and score touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens. So again, even going against, teams like that or defenses like that, I think that actually helps the Cincinnati Bengals going into Buffalo, because that type of competition they've already gone against. They're not going to be surprised. As for the Buffalo Bills, they could potentially be surprised. The Bengals walked down the field on them in that matchup in Cincinnati. I know we only got around 1 quarter or less than a quarter, but they marched right down that field. They were moving the football with ease. So for me, I do think it's actually a good thing for the Cincinnati Bengals. They face this tough competition. And for the Bills, real quick, one thing that I do think is more probable in this matchup is, like you said, Josh Allen with his legs. Josh Allen didn't use his legs that often against the Miami Dolphins. This is a spot where I expect him to take off and run more. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets around 50 yards rushing, maybe more, because this is one of those situations where he's going to have to get outside the pocket. He's going to have to extend plays, try and pick up those first downs. So I do think this is a good spot for Josh Allen rushing yards on top of that.
Yeah, and lastly, point on this game for me too. Like you said, the Bengals had complete control. They were 3.5-point favorites in game at the point before, obviously, what happened. Yeah. And again, not to just be like insensitive or anything here, but like the week after when the the Patriots and the Bills kicked off, like I guess you have those arguments that the Bills, their heads weren't fully into it, but like, at that point, we were pretty confident that Damar was going to be good, which is all that mattered at that time. Yeah. But they only beat the Patriots that last week of the season because of 2 kick return touchdowns.
Exactly.
That shit. Like the Patriots outgained the Bills in that game. The fact that the Patriots did not even cover the 7.5 or even win outright is kind of bullshit. Like they were playing better than Buffalo was. So that is one of my last points there, is that like I just don't see what everybody's still seeing with this Bills team, and not because of a lack of talent or depth. Like they have those things, but the injuries have picked up. Josh Allen has not been that sharp, and all things considered. I had another point, but it honestly slipped my brain while I was going through that. But just if I come back, if I reminded, I'll go back to this game quick. But we're completely in the same boat.
Real quick, too, to your point, you can only play down to your opponent so much. Yeah. You keep playing down to your opponent, they're going to sneak up on you, and it's going to bite you in the ass. And if you play down to the Cincinnati Bengals and then they get the ball with 2 minutes left, something like that, you're going to lose that game. So I think they're just flirting with disaster, and I think disaster's coming this weekend against Cincinnati.
And what the point I was going to make is, again, not to be insensitive, but the NFL did stopping that game, voting it 100% the right move, 100% the right call, still praying for Damar. But the Bengals lost the chance at the 1 seed because of that.
Yeah.
They win that football game. They beat the Ravens. They're sitting with they didn't play. They wouldn't have played last week. They would have been chilling. Like they would have hosted Buffalo. They would have been home, hanging out, ready. They would have actually been hosting Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So they have to feel slighted in some sense. And I think that in terms of the motivation, there's more motivation for the Bengals to be pissed off about that happening versus the Bills having that extra oomph, I guess, of motivation. I would lean that in the Bengals there. You're giving me fucking points with that. I'm taking points. The last but not least, Dallas, San Francisco. I was on Wager Talk today, the show sponsored by Wager Talk, which is the parent company of Sports Memo. Shout out to our sponsors, Wager Talk and Sports Memo, as well as PointsBet. But I said San Francisco minus 3.5, like kind of not really like no hesitation. Right now it's circa, it's 4, 3.5 mostly everywhere, but at a sharp book like circa, it's still hanging the 4, while the other books are hanging the 3.5. Definitely makes me more inclined to go against San Francisco. I'll go into it after, but Matt, talk to me first. I know you're loving this Niners train. Do you think they kind of beat like 3.5 points? They have the number of 3 is covered by Dallas. You think this is a 3-point game where the value in the line might be with Dallas while the Niners win, or like, nah, screw it, the Niners are blowing them out?
Yeah, so I'm going to be honest. I am somewhat split on this game. It's tough. I wish I would have got it at the -3. If I was with the -3, it would have been the 49ers.
It was never a 3. If you can maybe buy a half point.
It never was?
Yeah, unless I missed it on like one of like the FanDuels or the PointsBet had it at 3 early in the week. I didn't see, but the opener that I've been tracking, it opened at 4, so it hasn't.
Gotcha.
I haven't seen 3 of it.
Because I thought I saw it at 3 earlier in the week, maybe on FanDuel or something like that, right after the playoff games. I'm not positive.
Maybe right after the game, maybe, yeah. But like the openers for the start books taking real action that the Bucks then copy from, I see a 4 opener.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, for me, here's what it is. With Brock Purdy, he ended up playing great in that Seattle game, came alive in the second half, was lights out. But in that first half, he was a little spotty with some of his throws. You could definitely tell the pressure was getting to him a little bit. So that's my biggest worry here. It's crazy. As a rookie, as a 6th round or Mr. Irrelevant, essentially rookie, he hasn't felt any pressure, it seems like, until last week against Seattle. So for me, I'm kind of trying to factor in that this is a rookie quarterback. This is a guy who he almost seems untouchable. And, that just doesn't happen in the NFL. At some point, it does creep back up on you. And I think this could be it. I don't think the Cowboys win this game. I think it stays relatively close, though. And For me, I am with the boys plus 3.5. I don't think this is going to be an official pick for me just because of how much I love San Francisco. I have them winning the NFC. I have them winning the whole dance. A lot of what I factor in here is like guys like Micah Parsons coming off that edge. And if Micah Parsons can get to Brock Purdy and maybe give him some trouble, I think this game could stay within that 3. Again, this is one that I'm completely torn on. I'm not going to lie, because from the other standpoint, Dallas has looked like shit. And then last week, they go and win that game against Tampa Bay. And I know a lot of people wanted to get around Tampa Bay. They wanted to get around Tom Brady, have one last magical run. Yeah. And that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team sucks. That team absolutely sucks. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't run play action. Tom Brady's throwing it at people's feet. Like, it was just a bad football team. So then there's part of you who's like, okay, well, how good is Dallas really if they went out and beat that shitty Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, And the Cowboys team was definitely struggling. But one thing that I think that game does do is give this Cowboys team a little bit of confidence coming into San Francisco. So that's one thing that I am somewhat hinging on. These teams are very familiar with each other as well. San Francisco beat this team in Dallas last year. So it's one of those spots where I'm very, very torn. Personally, with the 3 in the hook, I think I'd be with the Cowboys. I think this is a good enough team where they can keep it within 3 points. And I do think they could potentially surprise San Francisco and get up on them. Kind of like, actually, I don't know if Seattle got up early. I can't recall. But
no, they were up at halftime.
So Seattle was up at halftime against San Francisco, and then San Francisco took off. Against a team like Dallas with, that is a good defense. They do have guys like Micah Parsons who could be Defensive Player of the Year. You got a corner like Trayvon Diggs who can match up and man up with people. But man, this San Francisco offense is very potent as well. So again, it's one I'm torn on. Right now, I'm with the 3.5, but come kickoff, I could switch. This is one I'm tough on.
Yeah, dude. So I didn't lock anything in yet. My first inclination for this game was Niners minus 3.5. Maybe we close 4.5. I think that the Niners are the better team.
Yes.
When you kind of break down who these guys have played, right? And even Brock Purdy starting, he didn't beat any good defenses. We know how bad Buccaneers defense is. Seattle took a shit on Washington, but while we're a good defense, number 9 DVOA, we're not an amazing defense. Arizona, Las Vegas, Seattle, no good defenses.
Yeah, that's true.
But going back to the Cowboys, besides the little Cooper Rush 4-1 run, over the last couple of months of the season, they beat the Giants. Okay, who cares? They beat the Colts. Okay, who cares? They beat the Texans barely. Okay, who cares? Lost to the Jaguars. Beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. Beat the Titans barely. I shouldn't say barely, won by 14, but beat the Titans. Third stringers didn't look good. Lost to Washington, who I guess Dallas really wasn't playing for anything, but that was supposed to be the confidence booster game. They lose. Yeah. Then they regained their confidence with Tampa. I think that's a fantastic point that you make because there's so much momentum is such an unquantifiable and important factor in the postseason. So in some respects, you would be like, oh, it's good that they got their loss out of the way in week 17, week 18, so then they can move forward. I'm personally not buying that. The Cowboys are number 2 in defensive DVOA this season, but I just feel like this defense is overrated. I'm not going to pull out any stats out of my ass that's going to kind of back that up. But ever since their secondary kind of got banged up and against that Jacksonville game when they got destroyed by Trevor Lawrence. They lost the game in OT. It's tough, man. I think this line is pretty on point. You think you want the Niners, you try to get a 3 if it pops up. You like Dallas, you're good with a 3.5 or 4. You have that field goal covered. Going back to that Niners Seahawks game, the Seahawks were looking like they were going to score again and take a lead or make it a close game until Geno Smith had that red zone fumble that was then taken. That's what kind of sparked what's going on. I just think that the Cowboys defense is a little bit overrated. But again, to your point, the Niners, Brock Purdy, who has he faced? He didn't look good in the first half. His numbers are inflated because of a 75-yard run from Debo after the catch. Yeah. You know what I mean? So is this the rookie letdown we've been waiting for? It could be. I don't know.
I sure hope not. But yeah, from what I've watched, and what I saw in that first half against Seattle, he was a little bit frazzled. And to his credit, he got it under control and he started making some throws. But, in the playoffs, you really can't do that. You can't have a first quarter. You definitely can't have a first half where you're struggling or frazzled or anything along those lines. And, so one thing with Dallas, though, they don't stop the run well.
That's what I'm really just going to say.
Yeah, I do think Christian McCaffrey. And so here's the thing. If you're a rookie quarterback and you can run the football in the playoffs, it helps you to relax that much more and allows you to kind of ease into the game on top of that. And that's also one way that you limit people like Micah Parsons. You allow him to come upfield, you hit his gap, and that's how you do it. So, and then the next play, he's thinking about it. Oh shit, can I go upfield or do I have to stay defensively sound and play my game? You know what I mean? But with that being said, it's a tough spot. I might even just buy a point and do the -2.5 because I just don't want to get hit with the hook here. Honestly, all the 49ers are like my most confident team, but there's something about this 3.5 and this Cowboys team that makes me feel like it can stay close. And I hate that I feel that way, but that's how I'm looking at it.
I agree with you. And like I was literally going to say, so the Cowboys defense ranking 27th in attempts against on the ground, 22nd in yards against on the ground, 17th in yards per attempt allowed on the ground. So that can definitely, like you said, take the pressure off Brock Purdy, let Christian McCaffrey, Jermichael Hasty, whatever the hell his name is, the rest of that, Elijah Mitchell, who's healthy now.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to establish that run 100%. But quick little notice here. One of the sharp books actually just moved the line to, I was actually already sitting 8. So there is 1-8 out there for Philly, actually. Actually a couple. So maybe we'll be seeing some 8s after the Eagles game. But no, last thoughts on Dallas, San Francisco for me is that while I easily lean kind of Niners -3.5, like it's just like coaching, bro. Like Mike McCarthy sucks. Like that was their first playoff win. That was the Cowboys' first road playoff win in like whatever 30 years. But like I don't think people understand how shitty of a team they beat.
No, I'm 100% with you. Personally, so I've gotten a lot of debate about this, but my coach of the year is Kyle Shanahan. I understand.
Plus 200, he's number 2 in where you would be looking. So like he has the second best odds. So like it's not like a far-fetched thing to say.
Yeah, no. And who's number 1? Is it Nick Sirianni?
Sirianni. It goes Sirianni, Shanahan, Dable. I'm Team Dable personally, as we talked about. But yeah, continue. Okay.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, even going into your point a little bit more, Mike McCarthy is not a good coach at all. I think he's kind of, you gotta change your game as the game evolves. You know what I mean? You got to be more aggressive at some points. You got to start switching up the offense, more motions, more trick plays, stuff like that. And we could see that, but that's not exactly Mike McCarthy. And for me personally, I put my faith more in someone like Kyle Shanahan. Like any given play or any given drive, just sit and watch everything that San Francisco offense does. There are people going in motion all over the place. They are sending Christian McCaffrey in different motions. He lines up in different positions, different places throughout the field. And he's doing that so he can get his best players out in space. And then again, you send Christian McCaffrey over in motion. Who the hell over to the left side? Who the hell's on the right side? You got a Debo and Kittle on the right side doing combination routes, and you have single coverage because of it. That's what Kyle Shanahan does. And for me, that's why Kyle Shanahan is my coach of the year, because not only is he I personally think the best play caller throughout the NFL. He's done it with 3 different quarterbacks. And I completely understand you probably have the best defense in all of football, no doubt. But when you're just changing quarterbacks in and out like that, it is not that easy. And then for someone like Brock Purdy to come in, be ready to roll like that as, a Mr. Irrelevant, a lot of that has to do with the coaching on top of that. And no doubt with Nick Sirianni and the Eagles, he's done an amazing job. But Jalen Hurts probably would have won the MVP if it wasn't for him going down. And then you got someone like A.J. Brown, which I understand Sirianni probably vouched for him to come in, and he's a game changer, stuff like that. But this is a very, very good Eagles team. And in terms of adversity, I felt like Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers faced more. And as a head coach, he helped them to overcome that. So that's why Kyle Shanahan is my head coach of the year. And I kind of went on a little tangent there. I was talking about the game for a while. But that's also why I like this 49ers team to beat this Cowboys team. I just worry about that back door always being fucking open in this game, and maybe a last touchdown for to cover for the Cowboys or something along those lines.
Yeah, because this is a situation where, again, coaching, like Kyle Shanahan, head coach / OC, obviously greater than Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore combined times 10. And defense, Dan Quinn, very, very good. Can't discredit him as a coach. But D'Amico Ryan's putting together a hell of a season as a Niners.
Yeah.
Again, both San Francisco's number 1 in defensive DVOA. Dallas number 2. The hook is really the killer here, right? Like I kind of would rather have this been just sitting like Niners -5 and just take the 5 rather than a 3.5 and have to think about why is it so close.
I hate getting killed by the hook, man. I hate it.
But no, that's obviously going to do it for us on the show. Next week, we'll obviously discuss the championship game as well as some of those season awards that still like Offensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year that haven't been solidified, like DPOY and Defensive Rookie of the Year. Also, like Sauce Gardner's -1,200, like he's winning.
Yeah.
Bosa is -1,100, I think. Like he's probably winning.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't see that because week 17, I thought I saw Micah Parsons leading it. So Bosa was my pick. So I like that Bosa. I didn't bet that one. I bet Jefferson, Offensive Player of the Year. So
beautiful. Yeah. So like those are basically set in stone. We'll obviously talk about them and get back to it. But do not forget, we are giving away $200 free bet. We're going to post on all the Twitters at Bettor's Almanac, at Moneyline Matt 8, at Slime Action. You'll be able to see all the information to lock in and get a $200 free bet for championship weekend. So what more can you ask for than getting down some action for this weekend and then the chance to win a $200 free bet to then place on one of the championship games. But Matt, any closing thoughts?
No, man, excited to attack this weekend. Trying to end the year strong. I think we got a pretty good handle on a lot of these games. The only one that I personally feel a little confused about is Cowboys versus 49ers. And we know how it goes. Sometimes you feel great and it goes great, and sometimes you feel great and it don't go that great. Yeah. So hoping for a good weekend, and definitely hoping for the Bengals to upset the Bills. That's what I want more than anything.
Me too. That would be the best case scenario. And obviously, the degenerate in all of us makes us want to bet every single game because we're so low on football. But nothing wrong with not backing the Niners or the Cowboys if you don't love anything there. So if you do have anything, you could hit Matt or I up on Twitter. Again, at Moneyline Matt 8, at Slime Action. I'm sure we're willing to share any and all thoughts. Matt also launched a new Patreon for his NBA same game parlays. He's been absolutely murdering it, hitting like over 50K worth of bets in the last 3 weeks. And no, that is not bullshit. They're taking like, I can't believe it. I'm still like looking at this guy. Who the fuck are you, bro? Like, but definitely make sure to check that out on Twitter as well. Shout out to PointsBet for the sponsorship and everything. We appreciate you. Shout out to Sports Memo and Wager Talk again for powering the show as well. We appreciate you as well. Best of luck this weekend, guys. Looking forward to next weekend. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.